Peace and blessings. Namaste to all light warriors, workers, and everything in between. It is I, Sophie, today, and part of the Warrior Goddess training we're going to be dealing with is marriage, intimacy, love, and sex. Why? Why? Because we're starting our new earth journey, okay? And we want to learn from all of our past mistakes, all right? We're clearing this up and we want to get back to these divine unions. Why? Because the children suffer the most when they're coming from broken family units, okay? And in this new journey, we want to restore back the love. We want to restore back the family units. And I want to teach you some of the things that I learned on my journey, especially coming from the walk of life of Ibri, okay, or Hebrew. Some of the things that our ancestors did that can save you if you do it the right way, okay? And some of these practices were in Israel, also in West Africa, and some of them migrated here to the United States. I'm also bringing this up because I get a lot of text messages with women saying, okay, there's no good men out here. And surprisingly, I'm getting more text messages from men who are having a harder time finding women, which used to be in reverse, right? So we already see that there's some changes going on here now. Some of our divine masculines, they're looking for their wives, you know, and the wives are like, I don't want to be married. I don't want to be bothered, or using them for sex or using them for money. I didn't know that day and age was here, but it definitely is, and it's strong, right? So we did certain practices that help bridge and keep these marriages strong. The truth of the matter is there are plenty of good men and plenty of good women around here. So we don't want to say there's no good men. What you're actually saying is I can't find somebody that's compatible with my lifestyle or my ideology. Okay, that's what you're really saying, but you can't say that there's no good men or women, all right? So what we try to do is when we're doing matchmaking, or if I'm doing couple counseling, is I started to realize that a lot of people aren't vetting their spouses. That's a practice that we always did. So let's go back in time for a little bit. And I want you to follow me so you can see how some of these things made sense, okay? And it wasn't just done to be restricting to you. It was done because it was designed to last. Why? Marriage is a contract, honey. It's not one of those things where you just fall in and out of love with. It becomes a contract that you and this person is going to journey together. And there are different types of marriages. There are some that marry strictly for love. There's other that marry for security. There's those that marry for business ventures, okay? There's some that marry for bridging two nations together. You know, we did all of these practices and we understood them. So back in the day, how we would do is, number one, the father, if he's given away his daughter, his main concern was, can this man take on and provide for her the way that I can or better, okay, because you are his princess, all right? So he's given you off to a man. He's trying to make sure that that man can take care of you like he could or better, okay? It's the same thing with women too. So we have to understand our mothers-in-laws, because some of us have mother-in-laws from hell, or had mother-in-laws from hell, okay? And if you don't get along with the mother-in-law, if you don't get along with the family, this is going to be a nightmare for you. And not only is it going to be a nightmare for you, it's going to be worse for him, because you're going to put him in a position where he has to choose between you and his mother. Do you have any idea how much stress that is on a man? So back in the day, we vetted the families, okay? So if there was a man and a woman who were thinking about betrothal, or even if it was an arranged marriage, okay, what would happen was the families would get together and they would talk. Okay, and they would talk about what it is that they were trying to do. Why were you good for her, or and vice versa? The families would communicate. Okay, and then they would sit down and discuss what we can call a Tanayim. All right? What the Tanayim is and what it was designed to do is solidify the marital contract. So basically, what the future husband or the fiance would do, he would write down his expectations of what it is that he wanted from his wife, whether what it was children, was it maintaining a certain lifestyle? Okay. Did he wanted her to work or provide? Was she to be domesticated? Did he want a monogamous relationship? Did he want a polygamous relationship? All of that, everything that he desired in his wife, he would write it down. And everything she desired in her husband, she would write it down. And then they would compare notes and see what they could live with and what they couldn't. Okay. And while they're holding this conversation back and forth, if there was something that was outrageous and you're like, I'm not living up to that, he might scratch it off, kind of have fun with it a little bit. But, really what it's designed to do is show the contract and let you know when you are in breach of that contract. So if you sign up and say, I only want a monogamous relationship, my husband is to be true to me, and what is grounds for divorce is infidelity, and he commits that act, your contract is null and void, you see. So when you lay all of these things out very plainly, you come to an agreement with one another, okay? Then you could present that to the family. What comes after that is the betrothal. This is when you're wooing one another. You're getting to know one another intimately, okay? Intimacy is way better than sex. Intimacy is the most important thing that you can have with your partner, okay? And what do I mean by being intimate? I mean getting to know them, seeing how they think, okay? Feeling their energy, feeling your way around it. Touch, okay? Holding hands. When you do something simple like holding hands, that's still an energy exchange. He's letting you into his world and you're letting him into yours. So simple things like holding hands. Yes, we like to kiss on the mouth, okay? Especially if we're involved in passion, okay? But more intimate than kissing on the mouth is kissing on the forehead, because we want to open up that third eye. So when you're with your spouse and whatnot, kiss them on the forehead. Kiss your husbands on the forehead every now and then, okay? Let them know, I see you and I appreciate you, okay? You can do that. Now, after that betrothal, spouse, sometimes it lasts about a year. This is when you're kind of getting to know each other, okay? This is when you're doing the background check. This is when you're checking for the history. And what histories are we checking for? We want to know the genetics, the DNA genetics behind our future husbands or wives, okay? So we're looking at, is there history of mental illness in the family? Is there history of abuse in the family? Is there substance abuse in the family? Okay? You want to pay attention to how the father and the mother interact with each other. So now you have an understanding of the upbringing of your potential spouse, okay? So if they're courteous and loving and stuff like that to each other, that's the type of atmosphere that you're entering into. And if it makes you sick, then you don't need to be involved. But if you gravitate to that type of thing, then you'll love it. Some of the things that we have gotten wrong too as women is trying to compete with the mother-in-law. That has never been something that is wise to do, okay? You're not to be jealous of the mother, all right? Stop competing with her. What you want to do instead is learn from her, because who's going to know your husband better than his mother, okay? So you're going to learn from her. One of our teachings and some of the teachings that I adapted for myself is understanding eldership, all right? Since we operate in cycles of 7, an elder is considered anybody from the age of 55 and above. So now if he likes you enough to introduce you to his parents, and their parents are elders, show them respect. So you want to walk in, and simple bow. So all it takes is a simple bow. Greet them, bow, okay? And once you can get that done, then everything else kind of falls into place. All right, another thing, I hear this term thrown out a lot around, especially with women. They will say things like, you know, he's a mama's boy, okay? And they have an issue with men that have good relationships with their mom. No, that's ass backwards, dear, okay? You always want to pay attention to how your future husband treats his mother, okay? Because it's a reflection on how he would treat you. So if he has that type of utmost respect for her as a woman, okay, as a feminine force in his life, you want to admire that and you want to keep encouraging that. All right? Because what they're doing is teaching you how they relate to one another. So you'll have the ability to understand how to relate with him as well. I had a girlfriend that used to complain that when her mother-in-law used to come and stay for the weekend, she would come and rearrange her cabinets, and then she would insist on cooking for everybody. And that became a really big deal for her because she thought that the mother-in-law was trying to take her place as a wife. Understand that these are two different roles, okay? You'll never be able to compete with his mother because that's who gave him life. And she's not going to compete with you because you're the one that's balancing him out and you're journeying with him. So there should be never any competition. Honey, let me tell you something. If I ever had a mother-in-law that came in and wanted to cook for the entire weekend, she can have the kitchen. It gives me a break. It's all about how we process information, okay? You can look at that as being negative or you can look at it as being positive. I personally see it as positive because I might not feel like arranging it. Have at it, darling. And then I'll look at the way that you do it, and if it's better than the way that I do it, then I'm going to adapt to it. Same thing with cooking. Same thing with cooking. You might make your macaroni and cheese one way, but he was raised with his mom making it another way, and she might come to your house and tell you that you're making it wrong. Is it for you to get offended over that? No. Learn how she makes it. If it pleases him, make it that way. It's not a big deal, and we make too much big deals out of nothing. Okay? So we have our Tanayims, okay, our contracts are what we're going to write down. That transfers over into a ketubah later on after the marriage, after we go through the betrothal, after we go through the vetting, you know, making sure that everything works, okay? There was a time back in the day where everybody was virgins, right? You know, where the women was virgins and you get involved with them and it could suck, right? But nobody was the wiser because this is your first experience. So everything's like, but that day and age no longer exists, okay? Very few people around here that haven't already been with somebody. So now that you've already been with somebody, of course, there's going to be a concern now. Is he going to be okay? Is he going to be a good fit? It's okay to examine your future husband's bodies to make sure that they are a good fit. Women, let me explain something to you. Some of you damage your yonis by following along with trends and songs, okay, that teach you that he's got to be this inches or 10 inches or 12 inches or whatever it is. You should only be concerned with if it's a good fit for you, okay? Because it's all about the fit. And sex is supposed to be enjoyable. It's supposed to be intimate. It's supposed to be loving. It's supposed to be enjoyable. So if you find yourself being intimate with your partner and sleeping with him and he's not a good fit for you, or he's bigger than you, and while you're engaging, you're like this, it's not fun. It's no longer fun, okay? You're crawling up the walls, you know, that's not fun, okay? It's not. So you want to make sure that this potential partner complements your body shape, your body type, your uterine walls, All right, because what happens is our yonis are so miraculous that they can expand, and they'll expand to fit the size, of the man that you're dealing with. But if that relationship doesn't work and you end up finding yourself with another one and it's not as big as the first one, do you see where I'm going with that? Okay, then you might find yourself having to take yawny baths, steam baths, and do Kegel exercises just to firm what it is that you allowed to get torn up. Okay, we're not here to have that type of beating. Okay, we weren't designed to take a beating. We were designed to feel loved. And if the case was that sex was only for the bringing of children, then it wouldn't have been created to have this many androgynous zones. Okay? It wouldn't feel as good. It'd just be like animals. Okay? But because we were designed to actually enjoy one another, then make sure that you're enjoying one another. All right? Now, single women also, be very careful if you have daughters. All right? This is when your vetting process needs to be at its optimum. And you also want to make sure to do a background check. Do you want to bring in a man in your life who may have been accused of molestation or sexual perversion or indecent exposure? But most of you don't take the time out to look that type of history up. And you have to. You have to. And what you do from there, what you decide from there is up to you. But make sure that you know the facts. Because listen, not every man that wants to be with you while you have children really want to be with those children or your daughter. Do you understand? Some of them are just around them because they like you. And some of them are looking at your teenage daughter as a younger version of you. Okay? So that's very, very scary. It is better if you were in a relationship and you separated to allow that baby's father to stay in that child's life. If he's not abusive to that child, if he's not abusive, let him be his father. Okay? Now, instead of bringing all of these uncles in, okay, let him be a father to his child. Another thing, if you are blending families and the husband or the man that you're courting is agreeing to take care of your young child, and you've already vetted him, and he seems to be a good man to you, do not ever take that for granted, because it's hard to find. You don't know how much of a selfless act it really is when a man not only takes on you, but responsibilities that's not his and made them his. Do you see? So treat that man with a little bit more respect. For those of you who have expressed interest in me possibly marrying you with your spouses, you need to understand that, first of all, I am licensed. I am an ordained minister. I've always been that, okay? But I do my marriages differently, okay? Case in point, blended families, right? Blended families, man with one kid, woman with 1 or 2 kids, decide to come together and make a blended family. My vows are not the same. It's not the just husband and wife for richer or poor, for good or bad, and death do us part. No, we're going to go through the ketubah, because the ketubah is the marriage license. So what it does is it reminds you of your contract, okay? And you kind of hang it on the wall, and you make it really, really pretty when you sign off on it, but it has the ground rules basically on it, what you two agreed to do. So when I'm doing a blended family, I include the children in those vows. Why? Because it's important. See, when he is now saying, all right, I want to marry you and I want to be a father to your children, he needs to say that to those children. And not only that, but those children need to say to that man that he will honor, that they will honor and respect him as a part of that family and also as a father figure. Do you see? So I make the vows for all that are involved in this union. So when that child starts acting up, you're not my dad. Oh, yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. Okay? So we're making vows to each other. Husbands and wives, children, we're making these vows with each other because we're understanding that we're entering into a contractual agreement. We want these agreements to last. We want to understand the family unit again. We want to understand intimate relationships again. Okay? And intimacy is about communication as well. Ladies, a lot of the times we mess up when we think that our spouses should know why we're mad at them. They did something wrong, right? We saw it. We saw that they did something wrong. And we assume that they know that what they did was wrong. But I'm here to remind you, left brain, right brain, he's not going to know unless you tell him. Okay? So learn how to communicate that. Don't assume, don't walk around with an attitude all day, okay? And he's like, what is going on? Oh, you don't know? No, he doesn't know. That is why he's asking you what is going on, all right? So you have to have the ability to communicate. I can always tell when a relationship is going to go sour based off how they communicate with one another. When we are adults, and we are enlightened, and we want certain levels of understanding, we have to learn how to talk to one another, okay? We have to learn how to be expressive. And you can do it in the same tone of voice that I'm speaking at now, but just letting them know, hey, this is how I felt this day, and this is what you did. I guarantee you that he will have a completely different perspective of what it is that you saw. And it might even shock him that you process that information that way. So you're going to learn to get his perspective as well and to see things from his point of view. You can do all of these things and learn your spouse when you learn his family, his upbringing, his background, okay? When you take the time out before just jumping into bed. This is when we are being intimate. Can you sit in front of your spouse for hours and talk? Okay. If you're yelling when you have a disagreement, or if you're doing personal attacks, if you start to speak in a manner that is designed to hurt the other individual, I can almost guarantee you that relationship is going nowhere fast. And the only way to get around it is to possibly go through counseling, because you're purposely trying to hurt one another, and love is never about hurt. It's selfless, it's action, okay? So when you're expressing love, you are showing that individual that they are important to you. And you can't do that when you're calling them all types of names, can you? Or that's why your mom this, or that's why that. That's just nasty. And it shows that you don't have the level of respect that is necessary to keep that union alive. So when I start to see things like that, I automatically know this isn't going anywhere. And then what I try to do is get them to train to learn how to communicate with one another better so we can get to the root of the issue. Because sometimes the arguments are just a facade, and it doesn't really mean what is being shown, okay? So we want to learn how to do that as well. Never, ever, 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 ever try to force love. Never do any type of spell work for love. Never do a love spell, okay? To try to draw somebody to you. It's the quickest way to get bit in your tail. What happens when we do spell works? Number one, it's not authentic. And what you get is not going to be what you want. Do you understand? When we do spell works to try to force an issue, what we're doing is manipulating somebody else's free will. And we're putting them in a false sense of security. All right? You're manipulating their free will. And the moment that they experience real love, it's going to break. See, love is the most powerful law and the strongest law and the highest law in this entire universe. Love is the only frequency that can transform through time and space and dimensions. Do you understand? This is how soulmates start to reunite and twin flames reunite, because love is that powerful, okay? But it's the only power that is that powerful. So if you're doing spell work to try to draw love, you're not going to get it. You're going to get a shallow facade of it. You're going to get a robot that's functioning underneath that spell. And the moment that that individual actually do experience love, that spell is gone. It's not strong enough to hold. So not only have you manipulated free will, you've set your own relationship up for failure, but now you have karma that's going to come behind that for interfering with that person's life journey and your own. Okay? So never ever try to do a love spell for anybody. Anything that you draw to you needs to be authentic and meant for you. And you need to feel it deep down. Okay? And it needs to show all across by the way that you're communicating. Okay? By the way that you're loving one another, through respect, through gift giving. I mean, whatever your love language is. Okay? Because we all have different love languages. Also, women, you're messing up by not telling your husbands or your spouses or somebody that you're dating if they're not pleasing you. You can't do that. I know we struggle with balancing with our men's egos, because our men have egos. Not saying that women don't, but theirs get right. And what is the worst thing or the worst blow to a man's ego? Is to tell him that he sucks in bed, right? You don't want to say that, right? So what we tend to do is try to protect his ego, and we fake things that we're not really enjoying. Ladies, it doesn't get any better if you continue on to this. And there's a way that you need to communicate with him that is not a blow to his ego. First of all, he's a man that's probably been with more than one woman. And we understand that all women aren't built the same, and we don't like the same things. So it is your job to train him how to please you. All right? That's the only way that you're going to get the best experience out of your sexual experience with them. If the communicating part of it is not going, but you know how your body rhythm is, you know how your body moves, and he's not matching that rhythm, and it's kind of throwing you off, this is a time that you need to get on top and teach him. I should have warned y'all to get the kids out the room, because I'm going to be very authentic about this, because these are topics that we tend to not want to deal with, and I deal with all the topics that we don't want to deal with, because that's what I do, and this is how we heal and start to learn to do better. And we do better when we know better, right? So what I'm saying to you is you have to get on top now, and you have to teach him your rhythm, all right? Teach him, show him your movements. And once he gets it, once he learns your body, your sex life will be amazing. But you can't continue to live like that. That's how infidelity occurs. All right? So make sure that your basis is covered all the way around. Make sure that he understands you, not Nancy or Terry or Veronica. You know, you. You're uniquely and wonderfully made, okay? And so is he. So is your divine masculine. So that's why you want to make sure that y'all, when y'all are connecting on that level, it is mind, body, soul, spiritual connection. And when you enter into these contracts that you want to enter into for life. And we understand that that doesn't always happen. Some people are in starter relationships. Okay, karmic relationships, or what I call starter relationships, where you're learning how to be in a relationship. So all of our relationships, unfortunately, are not going to last. And some of us think it's an antiquated idea to even have hopes that they will last. I believe in love. I still do. And I know many of you women still do too. And I'm here to tell you that it is there. But we have to learn. We have to learn how to not only relate with ourselves, but relate with our partners and relate to their families. Because if you have a mother-in-law from hell, your life will be miserable. So get along with her and look at her as another Ima. Or would I say mother? Okay? Get along with her. Understand your spouse. Vet them. Okay? Vet them. Make sure you're compatible. Mind, body, and soul. Okay? Communicate. Not cussing each other out. Communicate. Communicate like grown adults. Communicate like the queens that you are. Okay? And he'll follow suit. If he has a bad temper, but you're calm and you're constantly talking to him, he'll follow suit because he'll get embarrassed. It's a blow to his ego. Do you understand? But I am Sophie. I am here. And I love you all. I hope you learned something today. Bye.